You know, and that brings me to one of my last questions, and I've kept you. I appreciate all the time that you're giving me here. One of the last questions I want to ask you is about this election. And in your book, you discussed how one of your hopes or an idea that you have for this election is what you call the blank out. Essentially saying because of we want to cherish our right to vote, but we reject the options that are being shoved down our throats. Essentially, paraphrasing, obviously, that we're given this choice between two corporatist parties, and in our way of protesting against that is to leave the presidential ticket blank and vote for all of the down ballot tickets. I want you to explain that a little bit more for my audience, but then I also want to talk about it in context of the choice that we may still have, and it might be over. We'll see. We got some primary results coming tonight, but the choice between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, and the usage of the black community to really, and I want to properly describe it, not just the black community, but the black voting community, the Democratic establishment, the black political class, really using that narrative to elevate Hillary Clinton against a more the most revolutionary choice I've seen in my lifetime. So let's talk about the blank out as well as the black vote being used to elevate Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, so I mean, look, the blank out campaign is my response to uh, what political scientists have called the fact that black voters are a captured electorate. That we find ourselves every 2 and 4 years participating in electoral processes whereby Democrats try to deliver us, try to get us to turn out to vote with no intention of delivering on policy, with the understanding that we have nowhere to go, that we have nowhere to go. And so we find ourselves, right, for example, voting for President Obama at over 90%, right? And when we ask for specific policies, we get the response, I can't be the president of Black America. I'm the president of all Americans. I used to say to people, nobody asked you that. We voted for you at 92%, man. You need over 92%. You need to just deliver to a constituency. And so this fact that we're a captured electorate, how do we disrupt two things? How do we disrupt the way the Democratic Party approaches our community, right, by using us and not delivering to respond to the crises in our community, and the way in which a certain sector of the black political class makes its living by delivering us to the Democratic Party every 2 and 4 years, right? Every 2 and 4 years, we see them come out. Black people died for the vote. You need to go out and vote. And typically it's for some Democratic candidate. And then we go out and then they get their GOTV money and do whatever they need to do with it. And I wanted to say that we needed something bold because our communities are suffering. We needed to create what Jose Saramago calls a civic power outage. And so we have to disrupt this thing. And so my argument is that if the Democratic Party doesn't put forward a genuine platform, set of policy initiatives, not just rhetoric, but policy initiatives that speaks to persistent unemployment, to the crisis in education, the criminal justice system, right, the devastation happening in our communities, then we should engage in a blank out campaign. We should turn out in record numbers, numbers akin to 2008, and vote down ballot, affect state elections, affect county elections and local elections, but leave the presidential ballot blank, right? And this was a provocation. I mean, we can think about this in terms of, in the swing states, we don't do it. In the states that we know that aren't in play, we do it. But the idea is to try to shift the center of gravity of our politics to the local, right? To begin to think about what we can do downstream. And the perfect example of this, Brother Benjamin, is what happened in the Illinois primary. So Bernie Sanders didn't win the Illinois primary, but Anita Alvarez got voted out.
Right.
Right. There was an organized effort on the part of that local community, BYP 100 and others, right, to focus, along with the super PAC, I think, of Color of Change, to focus on these DAs that are the face of the brutality of these police departments, sanctioning it, right, in so many different ways. And so we saw in that moment, right, how organizing downstream would look and how if you mobilize and organize and network it across the country, then we could have a national thrust with a local flavor. So this was my I was trying to think about how this could work. So I read it in fiction, Brother Benjamin, with Jose Saramago's novel Seeing, but I was also inspired by the 1998 plebiscite in Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. They were given these options, 3 options, and they didn't like the language of the 3 options. So there was a grassroots campaign to write none of the above. And none of the above won by 51%.
Let me ask you about that. And here's the game that's being, and it's somewhat a game, but then there's some reality here that a campaign like that, if effective, could actually work in favor of Donald Trump, right? That's the big scare card that's being played on everyone. And my question to you then is, in the face of someone like Donald Trump, someone who is a proto-fascist and he inspires neo-Nazis, he inspires all types of racism, what do you say to people who are gripped with that fear? And besides the fact that they always have someone to make us afraid of, but how would you convince somebody who's genuinely afraid of a Donald Trump to realize that a move like this might actually be in our best political interest for the long run?
Well, first of all, I would say I would recognize the legitimacy of the fear. Right? I'm not trying to say that a Trump presidency wouldn't be deleterious to our wouldn't do mad damage to our communities. I don't want to deny that. But I always go back to the example of those sharecroppers in Mississippi. When SNCC organizers were in Ruleville, Mississippi, and they were trying to convince sharecroppers to put down their hoes and go register to vote. And they knew the implication, the consequence of doing so. Many of them knew that they would get kicked off the land. Many of them knew that they could actually be brutalized, and some knew that they were risking their lives. But yet they did it. They did it with the understanding of the implication, because they knew that there was something bigger, larger, a conception of democratic life, an expanded understanding of democratic life that would address their condition and the conditions of the most vulnerable. They imagined the world otherwise. And so if we are controlled by our fears, we will never take the risks that fundamental change requires. And we have historical examples of our people taking risks that fundamentally transformed and changed the scope of American democracy. Didn't uproot the value gap, but it pushed the envelope. So I would want to recognize the fear, but say if we're going to really think about fundamental change, we're going to have to take a bold and dramatic action. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we're going to have to kind of tell a better and thicker story about the Democratic Party. I want to ask the question, why is it the case that Black people have to bear the burden of holding off the fascist turn of the Republican Party?
Right.
Why is it our responsibility? Why can't the Democratic Party simply embrace a policy agenda that will speak directly to our concerns, that will address our crises? So you're telling me that Hillary Clinton and Wasserman and these folk will rather choose to run to the quote unquote median voter, trying to appeal to that swing Republican voter. We saw the New York Times today. Can the Goldwater girl attract the Republicans? Right. We saw in Politico the same article. We know what the Clinton campaign is doing. They're going to bank right. They're going to triangulate. They know we can't go anywhere else, or we won't go anywhere else, or they think the fear card is sufficient. And what do we know happens? That it's under the Democrats that they deregulated. It's under the Democrats that we got welfare reform. It's under the Democrats that we got the crime bill. It's under the Democrats that wages flatline. We can go on and on and on and on. And Hillary Clinton is talking about giving the economy over to Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
Right. So part of what I'm saying is that we need to do something fundamentally radical. Right. And some people say the third party option is the option. Maybe. But I'm thinking that just as the DLC, the Democratic Leadership Council, that just as they conspired to take the Democratic Party, the left, the genuine left, the progressive left, should, I think carefully about how we can push this party, right, to the left. And if we can't, then to hell with it.